Hello and welcome to Martinis Eco and Country Bites. I'm Martine Shepherd, and today I have a guest from a community in Western Australia that really needs to have some voice, some representation, and for the wider community, not only here in Western Australia, but all of Australia to know really what's going on and that we have the right to have the kind of communities that we really want. I'd like to welcome today Kelly Gillis from the Watchdog community, community Watchdog. My apologies, who's admin of their Facebook page, also regarding the expansion of the lithium mine and the issues going on at Greenbushes here in Western Australia. Hi, Kelly. Welcome.
Hey, how you going, Martine? And thank you for the opportunity to have a chat.
Yes, look, this is something that I've heard about for quite some time myself from people that I know very well and care about in the community of Bridgetown and Greenbushes. So, having attending the meeting on Tuesday evening this week, where I did a quick post on my page and told people that I'd be doing a bit more of a report about this, there were really a lot of red flags for me. And I think Kelly's just dropped out again. I will try and get her back into the studio. So what we're going to do is just continue. And basically what it is that there was a lot of information put forward in that meeting that was attended by Shane Love and Bevan Eats, both from the national parties. Bevan is someone I've heard incredible things about as representation of their community. I've heard from also his support for stopping wind turbines at Scott River. So big call out to you, Bevan. Hopefully we might be able to do an interview soon, but talking about this situation that's going on at the lithium mine here in Bridgetown, or just out of Bridgetown, which is Greenbushes. So what we're going to be looking at is the concerns of the community and what was raised not only in this meeting this Tuesday. I'm going to bring Kelly back in. Hi, Kelly. I don't know what happened. You've dropped out there. So I've just continued and done an introduction about what the concerns were, and perhaps we could just kick off by saying that a lot of the factors that were there written down on the paper that was given out about the issues that have already been discussed and had a community sort of consultation process with Talisman, the lithium mine here down in Greenbushes, and the impact of that. Perhaps you could just overview for a lot of people sort of what those issues are. I'm going to go and show some maps, and that will bring into perspective of exactly the area we're talking about. So here we've got Greenbushes, the community, and right next to it is the lithium mine. So perhaps you could give some overview of what's going on here, Kelly. Sorry, I can't hear you. I think you've turned your volume off.
Oh, okay. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes.
Right. So I'll just start from the beginning. The Facebook group is called the Bridgetown Greenbushes Watchdog, and it's a community group that was started by me after attending some community consultation meetings by Talisman Lithium in March of 2025. They conducted 8 meetings that were ticketed events. Hands up anyone who has had community consultation and that you've needed to get a ticket. They were limited to 20 people. They then extended the meetings to 2 more meetings, and but still ticketed, and 20 community members with a professional facilitator alongside their some Talisman Lithium employees. It was after
Standard
that
practices
meeting.
there of division, which is great. By having to have limited numbers, we can't have a thorough discussion, of course.
Well, exactly. So when you've got a population of say 5,000, and that you're only interested in speaking to about 175 people, I'd say that you're limiting the amount of information that can get out there in the community. This was a red flag for me, and some of the information that was shared, I thought it was limited, targeted, and it was, yes, definitely lacking in detail. So I made the decision to start the watchdog group, and it wasn't with the intention of creating division in the community. That is not what I want. What I want is to provide information out there of what's actually happening and how this is going to impact all of us. Obviously, immediately, the people in Greenbushes and surrounds and the property owners that are sitting within the expansion footprint and just adjacent to the expanded, the proposed expansion footprint are very much impacted. And people then started reaching out to me. So if you choose to join the watchdog group, which would be great, because I think that this is indicative of what's actually happening across our beautiful Australia, and certainly in Western Australia, that we're allowing our resources to be dug up by multinationals anywhere, and we're quite conditioned for mining to occur in the northwest, but we're not conditioned to, even though the Greenbushes mine has been there 130 years, it lived quite happily alongside its community until the last 5 years, and it's certainly ramped up its operations with the intention of ramping it up even more. My thoughts is that I'm not anti-mining. I come from a background of living in the northwest. My husband works in oil and gas. My kids work in mining, but it's about proximity to communities, and it's about how they go about what we now term as best practice. And I would say that that's been lacking.
Proximity to town, that's the one thing that I'd really like to kick off with, Kelly, because the thing that was most disturbing to me, you can see there's a map here and it shows Pit 3 and the Talisman mine, and the primary school is literally a stone's throw from this mine. Kelly, I'm not only disturbed by this, but knowing that the implications of some of the dust particles that are coming off that mine, not only lithium, but it's also mica. So people need to understand the type of mica that's coming off causes a similar thing as asbestosis. So,
yes. So look,
I'm horrified.
That's not, yeah, look, and I think that the key here is that parents have obviously felt that their children are safe there, probably up until, I'd say, fairly recently. And I certainly don't want to cause alarm, because that's not my background, but it's certainly something that, you know, I would be asking the Education Department and the Health Department to look into, as to whether those young children are safe in that environment. Interestingly, you know, look, we're only very new to town. Like we bought here in Bridgetown 12 months ago, and we bought with the knowledge that the mine was there, and, you know, we had no issue with that. My concern has come from the expansion and the footprint that's going to come, but also the loss of biodiversity, the health impacts, both physical and mental, the exploration licenses that are currently being worked upon on land that was purchased by Talison, that are obviously looking for the lithium seam. And so those things I have got great concerns about. And digging deeper than that, I've got, you know, at that meeting, they were talking about that they were trying to play catch up, that, you know, this was all happening in a very rushed way because of the pressure that had been applied to the mine in the last 5 years and the demand for lithium on a world scale.
All fast
Um,
tracked.
all very much fast tracked. And so their whatever long-term plans they had in place, they didn't project out that they were going to boom in the way that they had. And, you know, and I can accept that. I think they also are piggybacking on the back of Mark McGowan and Roger Cook and the you know, hopes and dreams for you know, the coal to be no longer part of our energy, and for it to be replaced by lithium, and for Talison to be transporting the spodumene through to you know, the battery plant. So I just
Kelly,
you
what
know,
has been
we're
the response from the Department of Education? Obviously, people have reached out and said, no,
look,
nothing.
well, as far as I'm aware, look, I haven't personally written to the education department, and a lot of that is because I don't have children there, and
Okay.
I have to walk a very far, you know, I've got to be very careful and mindful of not being seen to be you know, a troublemaker. And I'm sure, you know, I mean, that's how I'm viewed by some. That's not my intention. And I certainly don't want to cause fear in parents that don't have any, that have limited choices. You know, that, I mean, the
Mm.
kids could go to Bridgetown. Um, so I just need to be very mindful of all of that. And I'm not saying that I'm putting that ahead of the children's health. I just, look, the watchdog group only started in April.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not saying that I won't address it. I've actually written a letter to Shane Love and Bevan Eates regarding mental health impacts. That letter will be up on the Facebook page today. I have written about health monitoring. There's a letter to various ministers on the Watchdog page that you would have seen, where I've written on Wednesday morning to various ministers calling for health testing
Yeah.
of the people immediately impacted by the mine as it is right now, and what they're projecting out.
So,
So
Kelly, in that, what letters and what correspondence has happened or response from government Department of Mineral and Resources, and what has been the response from them about the proximity to the town, the impacts, and the fact that they're wanting to expand into areas where there is native forest?
nothing to me. And if people join the watchdog group, I'm not going to touch anything at the moment because I might lose you. But you can go on there and look under the file section, and you can see all of the letters that I've written.
Mm.
And I have not received a response other than, thank you, Miss Gillies, but this is actually not my portfolio, and or just thanking me for my letter. There is nothing. I mean, the level of
So the state minister would be Don Punch, correct?
Don Punch is the Minister for the State West, and he's the Minister for Water. He's received several letters from myself, and he has not responded.
He's
After I went to
notorious
the
for that, apparently.
Okay, well, it's pretty slack. And he's lucky we're not facing an election right now. And it's unfortunate that we weren't doing this prior to the recent
Yeah, election.
2025 election.
As the Minister for Fisheries, he didn't make friends there either. So all I can say is that unfortunately his track record precedes him, and I think that coming together as a strong community like you are doing is the best way to approach this, and certainly getting as much information out there to ministers, both state and federally, because there are a lot of things that are falling under federal jurisdiction as well.
Yes, and I've done that. So as I said, the letters are there for people to read. And what I'm encouraging people to do is whatever I post on the Watchdog Facebook group, what I say to people is, including my EPA submissions, please use them as a template. Shortcut your writing. If you're not that confident in how to write or how to put it together, use mine as a template and make it your own. So that's what the Watchdog is really about. It's about, instead of just saying to everyone, come on everyone, you need to start writing, you need to get vocal, what I'm acknowledging and I'm aware of is that a lot of people, it's not that they don't have the skills, it's probably that they don't have the confidence in themselves, and they're not quite sure how to put it all together. So I'm saying use whatever I am doing to assist you in that process. But taking you back, sorry.
Yep. I was going to say just about talking about the expansion footprint, because that is one of the major concerns. It's got here about lack of boundaries and long-term plans, the impact on property owners and pastoralists, people that have, cattle grazing or sheep. It's mostly predominantly cattle, but there's certainly sheep out that way too. These are the major concerns there. And so this is where there is what was aired as complete lack of transparency and fairness in the process, and it seems like it's falling on deaf ears with Talisman and the communication with the community. So what is going on there with the lack of boundaries and the long-term plans that are being transparent? Why are they not defining where the boundaries are?
Well, because they don't have to, because they are saying that they're still in their planning phase, and to be fair and to take a strictly, well, it is this very, I've got to be objective about this. They only have to tell us really what's happening, what's on, what's in front of us, and what's immediately in front of us. And they have done that through the EPA submission that they put in at the end of April, that I might add, they didn't really talk about in those March community consultations. I mean, they did talk around it. I'm not going to say that they completely excluded it, but they didn't say, okay, everyone, we're just letting you know that we're going to be making a submission, and it'll be in approximately 4 weeks. Log on to the EPA website, get the EPA to notify you when we lodge, and then you can then put in your submission either for or against it.
Yeah.
They didn't say anything
And
like
that's
that.
where the processes are failing, I guess, because it should be the responsibility for applications to EPA that it is notified to not only community, but the wider community if there is
and they did after the event. That, like it was up on their website. If you go to their website, you'll see that they have then, the fact that the community responded. I mean, I got a link saying they have lodged this morning. And so then I let everyone know on the Watchdog, and I said, right, I am going to be writing, because you're limited to 500 words. I'm going to be writing as many as I can get in. I wrote 7, covering different things, and I just said to people, I was just uploading my submissions onto the Watchdog Facebook group, and said to people, whatever resonates with you, whatever resonates with you, grab that and use some of that as your, or even just cut and paste it. It doesn't have to be 500 words. No. So then I think there were between 300 and 400 submissions. Obviously, some of those would have also been other government departments. So it's not all community, but I'd say that there would have been a lot from community. And we were all asking for a public environmental review, which is the highest standard, of which we then got. Now, my, you know, my cynical view of this was that Taliesin were not expecting any pushback or limited pushback because they haven't had pushback before. They have been able to conduct themselves, however, exactly how they wanted to, because many people are in the area, either are employed by them or have a family member or a friend employed by them. So
Yeah.
Taliesin has been operating in a bit of a vacuum because of that fact. Now, you know, along comes me. I've got no links to the mine. I'm a Johnny come lately, and I was like, I'm not liking how you're doing this, and I don't believe I'm the only one
No.
that's feeling aggrieved at, one, the way you're interacting with us, two, the level of information that you're providing with us to us. And so I thought, I've just got to act. I've got to use my skills, and I've just got to act. And
So I have spoken to other people that have worked at the mine and were there part of the establishment from the beginning. And when I spoke to them, they said the lack of regulation and the lack of compliance was disturbing. In particular, things like applying for permits, certificates to clear native vegetation. Those things were bypassed because it was just verbal instructions and never anything put in writing. So this has been something I've heard from many, many, many people that were either working for the lithium mine, and this, of course, allegedly, but these people have said that there has been this ongoing, not only historically, this trying to circumnavigate processes, but now I'm concerned because we're talking about through the extension, they're looking at going into native forest. Now, we can't go in there and log sustainably anymore. They're cutting that out. But I've heard from the community meeting the other night that there are things that are happening that really are disturbing to me. And could you shed some light on that as far as that's
okay,
maybe happening?
okay, so there was a ministerial in August 2019 that gave them the permission to clear a portion of State Forest 20, which is on the east side of the highway. And the current expansion to the EPA is to extend some of that clearing and to place their waste rock landform 70 metres high on the east side of the highway. Also to expand Saltwater Gully Dam. And what can I say?
So with that clearing, what are they doing with the timber then?
Well, what I've seen is that it was pushed up and stacked up, and a lot of it was buried. There's other community members, and this is allegedly, okay, so I've seen photographs, so it's probably not allegedly. I've seen photographs, but and I have certainly had the stories told to me about beautiful timber just being smashed up and buried because we don't log anymore in the southwest. So instead of actually utilising that timber, especially in a heated housing market where, I mean, I know most people build with steel now, but some people, timber's still used. It's just, I think some of the practice, I think it goes to the culture of what's happened, what people have been able to do, and what probably they've been permitted to do. I'm not saying, I'm not going to put my neck out and say these things have been illegal. I mean, when the EPA gives a mining company, or when they're being given approvals to clear, I haven't dug that deep to see if those clearing permits also require them to do anything other than dispose of the timber. I don't think that they're required to repurpose or, so what I would say to you is this, Martine: our regulations are archaic.
Yeah,
Like,
they are.
why are we not operating for 2025 and beyond, and recognizing that, yeah, we don't log anymore, but if we do happen to give anyone permission to take out substantial timber and it can be repurposed, then why wouldn't you require that to happen?
Yeah.
So there's things like that that I'm questioning, and because I have not discussed this with Taliesin, they might tell us. I mean, if you have the pleasure of interviewing one of them, they might say to you, well, actually, we are repurposing it. I'd love
And
to
that's
know that.
again, this is this lack of transparency in their processes of where they've disclosed that information, and so the community are aware. I've got a big map here, and it shows the area that goes from Greenbushes across to Nannup, and this is the expansion area. And I've heard from many people that are also over at Nannup that they've had
It's
individuals looking. Yes.
proposed.
Yep. So looking at doing some testing for minerals in their properties over in Nannup, and basically if you map it out, it joins from East Nannup the whole way across to where the proposed extension is. And this is where we're really concerned, because this is prime agricultural land. This is about food security, and this is about also protection of water systems and natural systems that once they're disturbed, how do we come back from? And that's been the concern I've heard across the board, that the contamination of water systems and the fact that there is dust that's being reported from community members. I've had them come to me directly, and I heard it in the meeting the other day that are up to almost 20 kilometres away from that lithium mine, and they're saying that this dust is not happening on periods where there's quarries, but when the quarries and other thing is not working, there is this dust in the air, and you can see that it has this. And this is where a concern is, that there is inadequate monitoring happening. And I've had individuals tell me anecdotally and allegedly that the equipment that they're using is only for certain particulates, and they can't tell whether and differentiate between smoke and actual particles in the atmosphere, and so the equipment being used is actually not truly accurate. And that's a very big concern for me, because we're not just talking about just the immediate community and this school nearby, but we're talking about these particulates getting in the air into a wider community, and that is something that is a real concern.
Yes, without a doubt. And I have got concerns. So at the meeting, they talked about the expansion of Saltwater Gully Dam. Now, that's just its name, it's freshwater. And you would have heard at the meeting the other day about they're saying, it's not affecting Hester Brook and Geegelup Brook and the Blackwood and all the rest of it. I mean, it is recognised that we are living in a drying climate, that we have reduced rainfall, and that our river systems can often be under threat. At the back of our property, we have Geegelup Brook running through it, and the summer before we purchased the property, we had large trees that suffered as a result of the lack of water. It was a very hard summer. So my issue around water is this: the land that they have purchased on the east side of the highway is agricultural land. It is in unproclaimed water areas. Okay, now unproclaimed water areas and they were designed for agricultural use. They were to be used by the people that owned the land to, water their stock or whatever. They were
not to be used by large-scale corporations or industries. Exactly.
Correct. And so that needs to change. That is something that needs to change immediately.
Yeah.
That they cannot just pull water from our river system because they have riparian rights
Right.
to that water. Now,
Yeah.
now the dam is going to be substantial, and it's on the east side. And um, you know, when they were speaking about the dam at the community meeting, which was quite ridiculous, and it kept getting repeated and repeated. So, and I doubt they'll say it again because I keep using it every opportunity I get because it was just so ridiculous. They were saying, you know, like, it's okay, everyone. We are going to expand this dam. You know, I can't tell you how many gigalitres it's going to be, but I could find out. But don't worry, the water is only coming from the sky. And I mean, I
Mm.
just sat in that room and I just thought,
No way.
who do they think they're actually speaking to?
Yeah.
And then Rob Telford repeated it again on the radio. So I captured that and quoted him word for word, and I've used that in the Watchdog group. And I will use it every opportunity I get because it
Mm.
is such a dumb thing to say. Sorry, Rob,
So
but it
is
is.
there currently bores on that property accessing
Um,
aquifers and underwater systems?
That I cannot tell you. The person who would be able to talk to you about what she has photographed is Nancy Jones,
Mm.
our local community member here, who is all over the water issue. She was at the same meeting that I was at. She was sitting up the front, close to
Mm.
me at that meeting, and she was talking about. She was the one that actually also said water from the sky.
Yeah.
There are pumps. There are definitely pumps. Whether they're the fact that they've got bores, I have no idea. But can we move? Like, all of these issues are really important. But I tell you the issue that I want to talk about, and that's um, the mental health impacts
Mm.
and how this is. I'm just going to go into the Facebook group, and I'm going to pull up.
Because I can
So
imagine for a lot of people that are saying that living there is causing them anxiety. I've heard that there are people that have got health concerns that are just saying, look, you know, they want to sell their property, they don't want to live there anymore. And so essentially there is this pushing out of people out of the community, which is not something we want at all.
no, and so I have written a letter to Shane Love and Bevan Eats, and I will extend this out to the Health Minister, the Premier, to our member for the Southwest, um, and whoever else I can capture in this. And I'll just give you a bit of an overview. So what I've said is, and I know this for a fact, okay?
Mm.
So I've obviously thanked them for attending, and I've said, following your attendance at our recent community meeting, I write to raise a matter that must not be overlooked. The mental health toll the Talison lithium mine expansion is having on residents across our region. The cumulative
Mm.
stress caused by the environmental uncertainty, falling property values and limited relocation options is taking a serious emotional toll. What we've got to think about here is that property prices are being devalued. People are trying, if they're trying to relocate, they're trying to relocate in a heated real estate market where normally, if you're buying and selling, you're winning, and
Mm.
you're winning off whatever you're selling, and you're then able to buy without putting yourself at financial risk. Well,
Yes.
that's not the case for
No,
people
of course
in
not.
and around the mine.
The Greenbushes
And
area.
yeah, so and potentially for Bridgetown as well, and for anyone that's running a business, but for
Yeah.
tourism. So we're talking
Yeah.
about bailing up. We're talking about, I think there's 70 odd Airbnbs throughout bailing up. I think there's a similar number in Bridgetown. I mean, honestly, who is going to want to come on holidays?
If this doesn't get addressed, I agree. I think that these
So what I've
do need
also
to be addressed, and it's now.
Yeah, so what I've also said is, and this is what's really important here in what I'm writing. So I talk about all of the information regarding the additional stress and the feeling and the emotional toll that it's taking, and the fact that this is people across the demographic and across the ages, okay? And that they're feeling trapped, unable to sell, unable to plan, and increasingly isolated. They also feel silenced. So, people feel a bit guilty for speaking up. And some have described intense anxiety, hopelessness, and the erosion of their sense of safety and stability. Distressingly, the potential for self-harm, and this is the bit that I want everyone to really tune in on, the potential for self-harm has been raised by individuals, with me, okay, in our community. These are not isolated remarks. They reflect the reality of people being pushed to breaking point. What I've also said is that we are fortunate in Bridgetown Greenbushes to have a suicide prevention network based at Henry Newen House, and it provides a community education and safe confidential space for people who are struggling, and that their work is invaluable, but they cannot carry this burden alone, and their very presence underscores the need for wider systems to take this seriously. And what I've said is this is not just about noise, dust, or planning laws, it's about human well-being. When industrial projects move ahead without full transparency, community input, or protective policies, the psychological consequences are real and often hidden. And I said, I'm asking Bevan and Shane to advocate for public recognition by the WA government of the mental health impacts of major industrial expansions on small communities. So I'm extending this beyond us. Targeted funding for locally based mental health and suicide prevention services, including outreach, trauma support, and crisis response. An independent social impact monitoring body to ensure that the government and corporate entities are held accountable for the broader effects of their decisions. So that's my letter regarding mental health, because I
think
am very concerned.
I think what needs to be addressed is about the amount of investment, and that is shown through a monetary value, how much people are valued for their health and well-being, and to protect those community members. Because the thing is that unless there is going to be some serious action from the Department of Health, or the Health Department of Western Australia, then we've got major concerns about, if they're not addressing just the mental health, they're not going to address the other issues there as well. And that's where it comes back to, we need to make sure that this gets out there to wider community, that there are people that are crying out for help, full stop. And that's what needs to be heard.
I think also what we've got to think about from a health perspective is that when people are under this much strain, the multiplier effects of health conditions are real. So I'm talking about blood pressure. I'm talking about potentially,
high cortisol levels, heart attacks.
Yeah, all of that,
Cancer.
but it's too late when someone takes their own life for people to say, oh my God, that's terrible.
It's not acceptable at all.
It's worse than that. And I know that people will say to me, oh, but Taliesin are investing into our communities. Yeah, 7.5 million. That is chicken feed. Thank you, but sorry, it's not enough. And in the and they'll probably come back and say, oh, we've given money to the suicide prevention, and we've given money to the youth group, the BYA in Bridgetown. And I say, not enough, not enough.
Yeah.
And
I just think that when there's a gradual degrading of a community, its well-being, its sense of purpose in being there, and why people live there in the first place, because there is intrinsic love for that place. That's what, when that's eroded, then you're right, becomes a systemic dropping down of mental well-being and in general the vibe of a town. And when you've got businesses closing, when you've got people stepping away from a community because they can't deal with it anymore, then we've got major problems. The one thing I would really like to, before we finish, because I think this, where it's always follow the money. It will always be follow the money, just like you've articulated. You know, they will claim, oh, we gave this, but it's like, yes, but specifically to this and these are the issues that the community's raised. My concern is that the state or the government, I think it probably is coming through federal funding also, but the state government is going to be putting forward $150 million in government support package for the lithium sector. It's a 2-year grant, so with no interest that's required to be paid back on this. And it's to waive downstream processors fees, court money, tenancy fees. I am horrified to think that in this day and age, we are pushing people out of community. There is homelessness, and this state government thinks that this company, who is foreign owned, it's okay to give them a handout like this with zero interest. They'll pay it back. But when you've got a mine that's turning over $6 billion a year, is that correct?
Yeah, but okay, so I need to clarify something. Talison Lithium did not receive any of that money directly. Indirectly, their owner, Albemarle, received some of it, and it was because they stopped the second stage of a project and they released 300 employees. So it was about protecting employment. But my point is, Albemarle is a parent company of Talison. They do not need 1 cent of taxpayers' money to be propping them up. And my issues are not just the 150 million. It's the fact that they, you know, if you read down, and I've quoted all of the information from Roger Cook. If you read down further and read that out to your listeners, that's a direct quote from Roger Cook that was in another article. You know, he is absolutely making no bones about the fact that this is all of his hopes and dreams rest on us transitioning away from
renewable energy.
Yep, that's what it's about. And what he's doing, he's following on from Mark McGowan. Now, interestingly, I believe that Mark McGowan and Julie Bishop both work for Mineral Resources now.
That's correct.
And so it's just,
this is where I'm very concerned.
You have to question the whole plan. Like,
well, it's always go back to where the money is funded. Yeah. The money's been put towards foreign corporations about decarbonisation. So it's like, this is the quote: we are not going to find ourselves in a decarbonised renewable energy future without Western Australia making sure its lithium mining and processing industries are capable of feeding the supply. So we know Albemarle failed and folded in Kemerton, which is near Australind. They closed that. So my concern is that above everything, there is a hierarchy put that mineral resources above quality of living and what is already found in the area, that the government is willing to put in $150 million to bump up this industry, whereas it's not looking at supporting primary industry in agriculture and horticulture, which is that predominantly what the industries are here. And this is where the great concern is, because there's a pushing out of a whole culture that has existed in here for hundreds of years.
Well, I just think, you know, I'm a bit of a realist, and I think that whilst we might, you know, be able to join arms with other people that are fighting similar fights, I believe that certainly this initial expansion will get approved. I think we really, all we're managing to do is slow things down, demand better practices. I'm in the process of putting together all of the paperwork for a community foundation that ultimately I'm going to be appealing to probably, well, Taliesin Lithium, Albemarle, IGO, the whole lot of them, Tianqi, that they invest into that community foundation as part of their community, I suppose, damage control, for want of a better word, that they invest into that annually, and that the community can fund projects so that these towns don't die, so that we can live alongside. And I'm talking about Baling Up. I'm talking about Greenbushes. Greenbushes should look like a polished diamond, and it don't. All due respect to the people who live in Greenbushes, but honestly, they should use that little town as like a little showcase. But no,
I
there
have
are
seen
other
the changes
things.
in the 3 years. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the other issues that I've got are things like where they do maintenance on a road, and they say, oh, we're going to upgrade this road, and then we're going to hand it back to the Shire. I object to that. If they want to use roads, ratepayer funded roads, as their haulage route, then they should not only be upgrading them, they should be maintaining them. That should not come at a cost of the ratepayers. So these are all issues that so what I'm saying to you is that it might look a bit, like there's only so much that I can bomb the community with. And as I said, I've only just started in April. So all of these issues I will be raising. Roads, I've already raised the community
The
foundation.
whole community needs to raise these issues, not just put on you, everyone.
But other people in the community have spoken about community foundations as well. It's demonstrated, it can be easily demonstrated around Australia, where corporate philanthropy into communities can actually, appease communities because they see that there's a benefit. At the moment, it's a bit like that big mining camp out the back of Greenbushes. What's the value add for that, for these communities? What is the multiplier effect? What amount of dollars are being spent by the men that drive in and drive out of that camp into these towns? I'd say it's minimal. Where are the supplies coming that Taliesin are buying to feed and whatever the people that, I bet you they're not being purchased from around here. So it's all of that sort of stuff. Like, it's a big, I mean.
Yeah, it's a massive issue. Massive issues being raised.
Yeah.
Look, thanks, Kelly, for joining me today. This is just definitely the tip of the iceberg. All I can say is to the community of Greenbushes, Baling Up and Bridgetown, fight like hell. Get your voices out there and get loud, because without getting loud and getting your voices heard, other people are not going to know about this. Thank you for joining me today, Kelly, on Edge Radio Australia.
Thank you very much for having me.